been 100 days since you've been in office, or will be on Thursday. What's one word to describe the first 100 days? What would it be?
Fun.
Fun, huh? Really?
Hey, when you're serving the people, right, and you know what you're focused on, there's a lot at stake, I think. When we look at, we just had not too tough of a budget season, I'll be honest with you, because I already know that 2027 is going to be where it's really tough. But we are having, I think, some really important discussions about what the next, frankly, kind of 12, 24 months needs to look like as we begin to see the implementation of the federal cuts. And I'm very focused on our budget, not only the city's budget, but also in light of the federal cuts, who that's going to impact. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, CHIP, SNAP. Those are the things that are top of mind for me as we're also trying to, again, continuously do economic development deals that strengthen us for the long term. So at the end of the day, though, I mean, we're all working very hard, and I know we're committed to serving the good people of San Antonio.
Okay. Overall, do you think your first 100 days have been a success?
I think what's important, what for me success looks like, have I looked at the end of the day, can I look in the mirror and say, did you do everything you could possibly do for your community? And I know at the end of every single day, I can say, yes, I did, right? Whether it's asking tough questions, doing the due diligence to make sure that our investments make sense, asking tough questions, and also just, hey, is this going to be implemented and have the effect that we think it should or it could, right? Those are the types of things that we owe it to our residents to ask about, and make sure that we are, meeting the needs today, but also being thoughtful about the strategic needs in our community.
Okay. On the campaign trail, you had a website where you put out, I think it was 16 different priorities. Okay, good to go then. So you said you tackle these within your first 100 days. Which of these do you feel you can check off?
Yeah, well, I think what's important, any good leader has a plan, right? They have looked at the landscape and they've said, these are the things that I would really like to make sure that we address with urgency. I think a good leader also recognizes when priorities shift, and when needs change in the community, that you adjust accordingly. So I think one of those things I think has actually also been very illustrative in the budget process, and even in trying to accomplish some of those, has been the challenge that we have in collecting the data. And some of that data you would think exists, but actually doesn't exist to the level of granularity to be able to go as fast as I think folks think we could, or would like us to. So one of my main takeaways, frankly, in this first 100 days is we need to do a better job of collecting the data to be able to explain the ROI to folks. But I think also, especially in tough fiscal environments, you need that data to understand, if I had one more dollar, where would I get the highest rate of return? And whether that is on, pre-K for essay, or whether on that's looking at affordable housing projects. I think what's also important is recognizing there have been some recent changes in the legislative environment that have made the focus of those for me just a little bit different. So, for example, in the last legislative session, the state put in some changes that would make it easier to build affordable housing. And that is a good thing. I think now the city's challenge is really how can we make sure that the building of those things is in line with some of our other objectives, right? Transit-oriented development. So I think any good leader, as the environment changes, you also respond to those things. I think certainly, top of mind has also been, some major economic deals in our community, and making sure as those are progressing, we're giving them the sufficient time and attention. So certainly that has been a focus of my time and energies in the first 100 days.
So what has dropped off that list? You said priorities shift as things change. So you've had, I think, 16 bullets on here, or 14 plus the progress portal and the monthly town halls.
Well,
I was calling those as well.
Yeah. The town halls are fun, yes.
Okay. But in any case, just looking at the lower 14 then, what has dropped off the list then?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily dropped off. I think it's been a different approach in how we're going to handle those. So, for example, on expanding, making sure we've got a plan to fully meet the need for pre-K in our community. One of the ways I think we can tackle educational outcomes in our community more holistically is why I set up the Educational Opportunities Committee. We as a city haven't necessarily focused on education in that way, I would argue, since Secretary Castro. So standing up that committee, really looking at how we can improve our educational outcomes, not only in terms of high school graduation, but also increasing pre-K enrollment. is something I think is important, not only in the near term, but also as we're looking at economic competitiveness. If you saw in the when I had my memo on council committees, I said everybody's job, regardless of which committee you're actually on, everybody's job is to do two things. One, we've got to reduce poverty in our community, and we've got to increase our economic competitiveness. And we should think about all of our work in that context, whether it be educational outcomes or even our infrastructure investments. So one of the ones I know that we did definitively check off is the as having an NDA policy. I think what this does is allow everyone in our community, whether you're a taxpayer, you're a city staff member, or even elected, there's very clear understanding now of why we use NDAs in the community. What is the minimum economic threshold that we would sign those for? But then also, what is the expectation if you are elected about? Frankly, I strongly encourage my colleagues not to sign those. However, if you do sign them in your own, professional or personal capacity, what is the reporting requirement to ensure that we're all operating from the same standpoint?
So some of these have just say assess or identify, but there are some with specific deliverables. Are you able to provide us with any of these? You had mentioned the NDA policy, that's deliverable. You've passed that last week. What about streamlined approval process for affordable development?
So that's actually exactly the one that I was talking about in terms of, based on the state's changes and what they have allowed. I think we modify that one a little bit in terms of how can we ensure that where those developments, we are also thinking about helping meet our transit-oriented development objectives, for example, right? One of the ones on there I said I really wanted to focus on is elder abuse. That's why when I asked Chair Core to lead the Public Safety Committee, I asked her to set up two subcommittees, one focused on interpersonal violence, which unfortunately is entirely too high in our community. The other committee, though, is focused on elder abuse and making sure that we're sufficiently addressing those from a financial standpoint, but also from a physical standpoint. And I think all of these are really important for me, as you know, as we head into a very challenging fiscal environment. All these, frankly, these terrible things that we see in our community only get worse in large part interpersonal violence. I will say one of the things I'm very excited about that helps to level the playing field. We as as policymakers, we're not going to have all the answers, but I think one of the ways in which we can help ourselves is to reduce uncertainty. And so we know those federal cuts are coming: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and CHIP. And so how can we best plan for that? We will do a table. I've asked Eric to help us put together a tabletop. And at the Pentagon, we call these a war game, but what it is just scenario planning, right? How can we, these major challenges that we know are coming our way, how can we help understand what our assumptions may be? How can we understand where we have some gaps in our understanding? All of that to help us understand how can we better partner with the county? How can we better partner with our local partners who may also be experiencing these same funding issues, but we know we owe our community a certain level of care and due attention and service. So understanding where those gaps are, understanding then how much it's going to cost to fill them, and then understanding how we would go about doing so.
On the campaign trail in Deus, you expressed skepticism about the benefits of a Spurs Arena deal. Your attempt to pump the brakes on that failed, and you voted against the deal that is going forward. Where do you go from here to try to follow through on your effort to get the city a deal that you believe in?
So what I think is important is we get an independent economic assessment. Again, I think that is when you bought your house, Garrett, I'm guessing you didn't just take the word of the person from whom you bought the home, right? You got an independent inspection to ensure that, hey, this is, the numbers make sense. And we're not paying too much, we're not paying too little. I continue to think it's important that we have that independent economic assessment, and I know we will have that because we will need that to negotiate other parts of the deal, right? So that's important, and I'm very thankful that the majority of my colleagues also in their comments, even when they voted for the term sheet, similarly expressed an interest in that. And again, that's just basic due diligence. I think that's important. I continue to say, I think if you pay twice, you should vote twice, right? You, as a city voter, you live in the county and you live in the city. So you pay $311 when you pay with the county, and you pay $489 when you pay with the city. So we're paying $800 million, of a $1.3 billion stadium. I think the value of a second vote, and I understand it's novel and that we haven't necessarily done that for a revenue bond. But the benefit of that is by the time we would do that, we would have the benefit of the independent economic assessment. And two, we'd have a much clearer idea of the economic environment that we're in. I think there is not a sufficient appreciation for the impact of these cuts in our community. But it will be devastating. And so I'm speaking of the federal cuts, CHIP, SNAP, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. These are going to impact our most vulnerable at the same time that we will have a gap in our budget, right? So how do we provide these services to those that are going to be impacted the most? That for me is top of mind. It's also important as we think longer term about how we shore up our own financial situation, which is why I continue to say I think it's only fair that we ask for things like revenue sharing. Every analysis will show you the most lucrative aspects of these sports deals are in fact the naming rights and which company puts their name on the side of that building and how much do they get annually to do so.
Do you see a path to actually get that? Do you see a path to actually getting that in the deal at this point, since
we have to ask? I think we have in the last budget 26, Garrett, you saw us, you were in there, we have looked under every couch cushion. We've done that. There's no more couch cushions to turn over. We have to help ourselves. And for me, it does not make sense that we've got this wonderful opportunity here that is going to generate a lot of money for people, that we would also ask for our fair share of that in light of all the needs that we have in our community. Law enforcement, senior centers, libraries, public health. Let me give you an example. Half of Metro Health right now, half of our Metro Health Public Health Department, half of their funding comes from federal grants. $80 million is the total. About 40 of that comes from federal grants. One of the things that we will tabletop is, hey, if all of those go away, how can we respond to that? Because if we still say, hey, we actually still need our community to have those medical services, we still need that level of public health outreach. If we still say we need all those things, how are we going to fund them? So we can help ourselves, we can understand what those answers are in the immediate, but we can also help ourselves over the long term. And yes, some of these solutions may outlive any of us on the council now, but I think that's just what a good public servant does.
whatever your plan is for going forward, voters will be deciding at the ballot box this November on the county portion of this funding, upon which this entire deal relies, at least in its current structure. If that gets voted down, are you worried you'll be the scapegoat for the current deal collapse?
No, I am not. No, I am not. No. I think, it is important. It is important that folks know when they go and vote in November, Proposition B, even though that text on the ballot language doesn't say it, the number is in fact $311 million. I'm not sure why it doesn't say that on the ballot language, but for those of you that were looking for it and were curious, the number is 311, right? So I think it's important frankly, this is exactly why I said we needed to pause the brakes a little bit, because my inbox, to be very clear, is 4-1. 4-1. Hey, I want the Spurs deal, but I'm with you on needing these independent numbers. We owe it to ourselves to know the true ROI on this. So 4-1 people supportive of getting that data, because our community deserves that, and we're putting in good money. So we should have good data upon these decisions. So look, I think it's an exciting time overall in our community. One of the things I'm most proud of in the first 100 days is having recruited that Taiwanese delegation to come here, Taiwanese Electrical and Electronic Manufacturing Association. This is one of the major trade delegations in Taiwan. As a result of frankly what's happening in the economy. They're looking for a partner here in the U.S. They were originally not coming to San Antonio. They were coming to Texas, but they weren't coming to San Antonio. I was thankful I was able to recruit them here, and we put a really strong foot forward. They were specifically looking at a partner for electrical vehicles and for drones. And obviously here in San Antonio, we have a very unique defense ecosystem. And given my background as the former Undersecretary of the Air Force, was really able to highlight some of the good things we can do here to support that mission, but also contribute to our defense industrial base. And I'm thankful that visit went so well that we have a follow-on visit with some of those folks here in the near future. So that's good news.
Okay. Now, you have had a rocky start with council. Members have used a previously rare maneuver, the 3-signature memo, to sidestep you 3 separate times now to force a meeting or an issue, generally around the CCR process. How are you trying to improve your relationships with the council?
I think it's always important that we focus on moving forward. I think the work in the committees, I think the work before us with the FY27 budget, I think we need to be focused on delivering for the people of San Antonio, and I'll work with my council colleagues. I look forward to working with my council colleagues to do that.
So how are you working on, I guess, closing those relationships? You've been on the losing side of several big votes. As I mentioned, you've got council members sidestepping you to get things onto an agenda or force meetings. It seems like you don't have that many consistent allies. And so I'm wondering what you're trying to do to bridge some of those relationships or gaps right now.
Yeah, when I ask for due diligence, I don't think that's a loss. Okay. So, for example, the animal abandonment ordinance is a perfect example. I mean, you wrote on it, Garrett. You wrote on how folks were seemingly voting on something that they did not have a clear understanding of how it would be impacted, how it would actually work in effect. And look, I think due diligence in how I grew up, in the community that I grew up, that is just doing your homework, making sure you're talking to the stakeholders, making sure that the thing that you're talking about is going to work as intended. So I will continue my commitment to due diligence because that's what the people of San Antonio deserve.
Have you made more efforts to, I guess, reach out to council members or to get them on your side? Because you mentioned, you do due diligence, but if the rest of the council moves forward, despite what you're wanting them to do, it seems like your initiatives or the things you want to get accomplished will suffer eventually. So how do you get to 6? I guess right now when we seem to be in the minority of the council on some of the big votes that you want to have.
Well, I think again, we're going to be focused on the things that move our city forward, from economic development deals to good policies, right, and more holistic understandings of public safety. I think when we're focused on the work, when we're focused on delivering for San Antonio, we will find that common ground.
Okay. In that vein, much of the early criticism against you so far has been about your attempts to take unilateral action on things that you may not have the power to actually do as mayor, such as the CCR process changes. How has your understanding of your scope of power changed in this 100 days?
Yeah, so I know you want to keep focused on the old stuff. I'm really focused on
the first 100 days.
Yeah. No, well, I'm focused on moving forward, and I'm focused on making sure that we've got good policies in place that serve our community. My due diligence obviously always includes making sure, hey, Mr. City Attorney, can I do this? Right? And if he says no, then it's a no. But if he says you can do that, well, then yeah, I think it's important that we move forward as much as we can. And I understand, that's folks would say, well, that's not how it's been done differently. Got it, noted. Doesn't mean I can't do it. Right. And so I think it's really important that we are focused on the big things impacting our community. Like I've said, I'm focused on that tabletop exercise. Let's level set on where we have some gaps moving forward and how we can mitigate those in the FY27 budget. Let's make sure we're being thoughtful about economic development deals. We've got great opportunities, but let's make sure, we are being as aggressive as we can be and really thinking about strengthening San Antonio's defense ecosystem. So I'm really looking forward to working with my colleagues on those kinds of things.
Has your perception of the job and the authority that you have changed over the course of 100 days, from being sworn in to being a mayor after 100 days?
No.
Okay. Do you think you have a full grasp on the scope of the mayor's power, seeing as that this is your first elected position and you have run into these guardrails or roadblocks so far?
No.
The question is, do you feel you have a full grasp of?
Oh, yeah. I thought you were asking something else. Yes, of course. I mean, look, I think what's important is, again, we all bring our unique personal and professional experiences to this. When it comes to due diligence, when it comes to, moving quickly and efficiently, and understanding how things are going to work in effect, those are, real process things that I am very familiar with, having led a large bureaucracy. And so I think, look, when we are focused on, again, the work and delivering for the community of San Antonio, we'll be in a good spot. Thank you.
Also within your 100 days. Okay. I guess the last question would be, what are you most proud of, and is there anything that you regret from within the 100 days that you wish you could redo?
One of the things I'm most proud of is pushing the conversations on a number of issues in ways that need to be pushed. I'll be honest with you, I was very surprised that our community, 2 years into discussions on a new arena, did not have an independent economic assessment. I was very shocked and frankly disappointed that we wouldn't have that because the people deserve that. And we're in a weaker, I think, negotiating space as a result of not having that. Right.
Anything you wish you could
So, but
redo?
let me also just say the other conversation I'm really proud of having expanded upon because what it does is set us up for the future. Is one of the conversations I asked Eric to have in the budget sessions was about TERS, right, the tax increment reinvestment zones. And these are, again, areas where the revenue kind of stays there to bring it up to a certain level. Some of the areas, though, are already at a certain level. And so then we have to think about when is it appropriate for some of those revenues to come back into the general fund in light of some of the community needs. So I'm proud of having pushed some of these conversations in the right direction, and I think that will only serve us well moving forward.
Anything?
Thank you.
Even the second part of that question, if there was anything
No,
you could redo,
no.
they wouldn't have gotten better off.
I appreciate your time. Thanks, Garrett.